She wants to know if you're having your Talmud.
Yes, and I'm connecting right now. Just tell her.
Okay.
She will see that. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good seeing everybody.
How are you, Rabbi?
We get everybody. We get David Weiss and Edna. And Tina and Cheryl and the Zellmans and Susan Diamond. I don't see Susan yet. Iris is here, not yet. Ted Lehman is here. Judy Samuels is here. And Aram is here. And Magali is here. Excellent.
Rabbi, I had trouble getting on. It said the host had another meeting in progress. Am I the only one who had that problem?
No, the rabbi was
No.
running late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
I know it's not so funny, but I have this class before with my Torah partner, and sometimes I get delayed. Okay, it's good seeing everybody. I have the good news that I did prepare. Some things are interesting and should not be particularly difficult. Is Sela going to join us still? Sela.
No, she's busy preparing for the holiday.
Okay. Okay, to give her credit or not.
No excuses.
Okay, so we are on 112, but let's go very quickly to the bottom of page 111. We are dealing all the cases of those who are executed by stoning, so these cases don't share too much in common, only that punishment, and basically the Torah, the Gemara, and the Mishnah are going to analyze which are the cases and what are the circumstances in each of these cases that makes a person liable to stoning. Just to refresh the memory, hi Susan, to refresh our memories, adultery is forbidden. A person who engages in adultery, the punishment, and I think we're going to see that later on, is it's called chenek, is strangulation, which from the four methods of capital punishment is considered the less severe, and it has nothing to do with pain. We already discussed that, but they are ranked: skila, streifa, hereg, bechenek, stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. So regular adultery is chenek, which is strangulation. We have two cases that the sexual act is punished differently. One is Nara Meorasa, the betrothed woman, and this is what we are going to deal now in the Mishnah and the Gemara. And the other case is the Bat Kohen. The betrothed woman is skila, is stoning, and the Bat Kohen, Shezinta, daughter of a Kohen who plays the harlot, is by burning. The Torah says, Ubat ish Kohen ki techel liznot et abia I mechalelet ba'esh tisaref. And a daughter of a Kohen that starts or that profanes herself through harlotry, which in this case is adultery. She profanes her father, she shall be burned with fire. Okay, so this is, we already discussed, I think, the daughter of the Kohen, but now we are in the case of Nara Ameorasa, betrothed woman. I'm going to ask Steve to read on the bottom of page 111. We'll try to do as much as we can today. It's not too difficult. Hopefully, we'll be able to make 2 Mishnahs and 2 Gemaras today. Okay, so let's go, Steve. Bottom, you are muted. Bottom of page 111.
I finished reading already.
Excellent. Let's do it again for those who
You did very
couldn't
well
hear.
too, Steve, better than usual.
Okay.
Mishnah, one who engages in intercourse with the betrothed young woman is not liable to be executed by stoning unless she is a young woman that is neither a minor nor an adult, a virgin, betrothed but not yet married, and she lives in her father's home, having yet to move in with her husband. If 2 men engage in intercourse with her, the first is liable to be executed by stoning, and the second is liable to be executed by strangulation.
Because only in one case appears the virgin part, but not in the other. Let's continue.
The second man is executed in this manner, according to the halakha of one who engages in intercourse with a married or non-virgin betrothed woman, as she was no longer a virgin when he engaged in intercourse with her.
So the Mishnah limits the scope of this particular case, and the Gemara is going to analyze. Okay, we did a little from last week, but let's begin again. The sages taught.
The sages taught, with regard to the conditions stated in the Mishnah, the punishment for stoning applies only if the woman is a young woman, a category that applies until she's approximately 12 and a half years of age, but not a grown woman. She must be a virgin, but not a non-virgin. She must be betrothed, but not married. She must be living in her father's home, excluding a case where the father transferred his daughter to the husband's agents to bring her to her husband's home for the purpose of marriage. In such a case, even though she was not arrived there yet, she is already considered a married woman according to halakha.
So just a couple of comments we did last week, and the English doesn't help too much, but there are 3 categories, three different names that apply to a woman regarding or depending on her age. An adult woman is called a bogeret. Any woman who is 12 and a half years and older is a bogeret, is like an adult for Jewish law. Any woman who is less or younger than 12 years old is called a ktana. Ktana from the word katan, a little girl. And we have this unique category between 12 and 12 and a half years old that is called a na'ara. Na'ara, the translation here, is a young woman, okay? Okay. So this is, you need to remember that. The other thing is that many of the married women, they were married like in the story of Eliezer and Rivka by an agreement. The husband stay, or the future husband stay in a particular place. The father sends an emissary to marry a woman from a particular family, and he brings that woman with him. Once he brings that woman, once the woman leaves the father, her father's home, she's in the domain of the new husband, even though she didn't arrive yet. So if something were to happen on the way, it is the responsibility, or not responsibility, it is already like in the domain of the husband, because she is accompanied by a person from the husband. I'm going to say something with the caveat that the comparison is not politically correct, but is going to apply I think it's going to be helpful to you to understand. Those who study, of us who study Baba Metzia, have the same issue about any transaction. And in the Talmud, in the time of the Talmud, marriage was a transaction in a way. Of course, the woman can refuse, can say, I don't want, but there were many things, including the kinyan and the transferring from one domain to another, that is similar to this idea of a transaction or a kinyan. Even the word kinyan is used in both cases. So we have the same case when is an object being acquired. What is the moment that an object is being acquired? So is the moment, let's say that you buy something from Amazon. Is it the moment that the object left Amazon, or is the moment that the object arrives to your home, to your front door, or inside your door? So the halacha is that kinyan is the moment that the person who is acquiring the object gets the object in his hand or in his possession or in his domain, not the moment that you pay. So let's say I pay, I send the credit card or I send the check for a book. The check is not what affects the transaction, but the book coming to me. Now I can buy it through an agent. So for example, I can go and send Ilan to buy milk for me. Or I can say Steve to buy milk for me. He is my agent. I cannot say to A to Z, you know, the milk was spilled on the street. I am not going to pay for it, because the owner will say, but your agent Steve picked up the milk for you. The moment he picked up the milk is already in your domain. The same happened when Amazon deposits the package inside my home. Yes, it's a big question, you know, what is inside your home? If deposit outside is not enough, but if we were to be inside the home, like the mailman or mailwoman puts the mail inside the home, even doesn't matter if I am not at home. That mail is already in my possession because my property acquires for me. Okay, is it okay what I'm explaining? This has to do with the loss of that. This is very, very important, because people used to you know, do transactions like this all the time. I can buy wheat from Aram, okay, and I can buy, I don't know, half a ton of wheat from Aram, or like, you know, 500 pounds of wheat. And I say, here is the check, Aram. Just leave it in your place. I'm going to pick it up tomorrow, okay? I'm going to pick it up in 5 days. And after 2 days, there is a fire. Who lost the money? Aram or me? And the wheat is gone. Aram says, listen, you sold it. I sold it. Was it whose responsibility is? Is it me that wanted to leave it in Aram's, or is Aram that says, let me leave it here? You know, I'm not going to deliver it yet. So all these questions are extremely important for the case of damages. And in this case, also, it's a small point, but where is this young woman? Is with her father? No, it's with the agent. Okay, when she's with the agent, she's already being with the father. Okay, so let's continue a little more.
Okay. Let me ask a question first.
Yes.
Since the girl becomes an adult at age 12 and a half,
Yeah.
why is she bat mitzvah at 12, not 12 and a half?
Okay, 12, she's already liable. 12, she's already liable. And this only applies for a particular set of rules, like in this case, en Na'ara me'ora sa. Okay, we are going to see, like if the girl is already 12 and she was to commit adultery, she will be condemned to death. But for this particular, because it's used the word Na'ara, we are going to see that these 6 months are important for some halachot. But if the same girl were to, for example, desecrate Shabbat, she will be considered an adult after she's 12. She's an adult. No, she's not adult. She's liable, but for this particular, for some, she still is liable, but in the word Na'ara applies to this particular 6 months. That's what I'm saying is a unique definition still. Okay, let's continue a little more.
Rabbi Yehuda says, the Rav says, this Mishnah is a statement of Rabbi Meir, who holds that the halakha of a betrothed young woman applies to a young woman of the intermediate age between minority and adulthood. But the rabbis say even a minor is included in the term a betrothed young woman. Only a grown woman is excluded.
Okay.
Rav Aha Difti said to Ravina, where is it indicated that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, and a specification that she must be a young woman is not only to be the exclusion of a grown woman, but also the exclusion of a minor girl. Perhaps the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and the condition that she must be a young woman is to the exclusion of a grown woman and nothing more. Accordingly, one who engages in intercourse with an engaged minor girl is liable to be executed by stoning. Rabbi said to him,
Ravina, yes.
Ravina said to him, this expression in the Mishnah is not liable unless she, a young woman,
Unless she is in Hebrew, ad shetehe, until she, yes, a young woman,
a virgin betrothed, does not suit your suggested explanation. If the Mishnah is merely excluding a young woman, excluding a grown woman, you should have stated, it is liable only for engaging in intercourse with a young woman who is a virgin and betrothed. The expression ad shekchi indicates until she becomes, that is, halakha does not apply until she reaches the age of a young woman. And there's nothing more to be said on the matter, as this is clearly the intention of the Mishnah.
Okay, I want to say in this case, this kills the conversation. Basically, he's saying, and it's nothing to be said, this is the answer. In this case, the person is satisfied. But I like just to talk briefly about how people kill a conversation by saying, and there is nothing more to say about it. Okay, and I don't know if you know anybody who is discussing anything, and the person is going to say, and there is nothing more to say about that. These people use that in order to press their point, but also can be considered an act of, could be considered like, I am convinced about what I'm saying, but also could be considered an act of bullying. Just mentioning this is my little contribution here. If I am having a conversation with Sylvia, and I say, and there is nothing else to say about this, and that's it, or my father used to say, and we don't discuss this again. Okay, when he, what he is another way of putting his fist down and saying, and if you dare to discuss it again, see what will happen. So we don't think about that, but it's an act. It's an act of bullying, or an act of it's a threat, and many people use it, as part of the language, but it's a problem, and we should, whenever we are in that discussion, here the Gemara apparently took his point, but if not, you should say why we don't discuss it any longer. I'm going to discuss it as long as I want to discuss it. Okay, or I'm going to bring it until you call a vote. The other way that people kill conversation is when someone will say, you must be stupid not to get the point. So nobody wants to speak. Because you say you must be stupid not to get the point, who is going to dare to ask a question? So it's very important when we are part of these conversations and someone talks this way, even though they are talking, in jest, you say, or like as a comment,
Yeah.
that someone should call their attention and say what you are saying is wrong. Okay, because there are many people who even when you get frustrated, you need to ask, you need to explain something, and the person doesn't get it, and you really want to move on, like you say, how many times, you're a little slow. People make all kinds of jokes, but what these jokes do is they intimidate the person and the person doesn't want to ask any longer. Okay, so I'm just mentioning this, that there are many people that will use like these types of comments or hyperbole, you say, hyperbole in order to kill a conversation, in order to discredit different opinions, okay? And it's very, like someone will say, for example, in a couple, will say, I guess you don't love me enough. Okay? I guess you don't love me enough. So, you could say, yes, I do love you, but I don't want to do what you're asking me to do. And do not tell me that I'm not loving. But these words, again, they are supposed to put pressure on the other person. If you love me, you are going to do what I tell you to do. Okay? You are going to cancel your plans for Saturday night that you have made, like, whatever that will be. I'm just talking about this. This is a parenthesis, but I just felt that I wanted to share it with you. Okay? Yes, Steve.
Rabbi, if you have into an argument that's going nowhere, it can't be said, enough said. Let's go on.
Okay.
And that's,
Well, let's agree to disagree.
yeah.
Okay. You
like
can
that.
say, so you can say, let's agree to disagree, or you can say, I don't want to talk about this any longer. Okay.
Right.
That which is different than to say, enough, enough said. Enough said is for me. You can say, I don't want to talk any longer. You can talk as much as you want. Yeah, I'm just talking also, and I'm not a, you people who are on the board. I mean, and both Sharon and Susan, you were chairwomen of the board, yes. And I don't know, Steve. Sometimes you get into a longer conversation. So the way you do is, okay, you say, okay, let's just, exhaust. Let's now vote. Voting is a good way sometimes to end pacific, friendly conversation. We don't have to agree. Let's, we can have difference of opinions. And let's write down who votes in particular. I understand you have a different point of view. I'm just talking about the language that we use. The language, and I used to have a teacher, may he rest in peace, that he had a bad temper, and he said, "This is so stupid that even," he mentioned a name, "even Danny understands that." He said that in a class. So not only Danny was offended, but he never opened his mouth again. He was afraid. So it's very important when you teach that you do not intimidate your students. And that if you see intimidation in your workplace, for example, there are many places in the workplace that the boss will intimidate the workers by being upset or by yelling when something happens. People are not going to do anything. You know what? Let's, just in case, I'm not saying anything. I'm not giving any opinion. I'm not giving any suggestion. Okay, because if he yelled me because I decided to put yellow papers instead of blue, let him choose the paper. And you see the culture in some congregations, in some places. They need to ask the rabbi every single thing. Which color do I do? Because we are afraid, people are afraid to making decisions. Okay? I don't know why I got into this rant, but I just felt that I wanted to bring it here. Okay? Please continue, Steve. Rabbi Yaakov Barad.
I could finish what you said by saying, and there's nothing more to be said on that matter.
Yes, and there is nothing more to say. Yes, but if you want, pick. Yes, go ahead.
Rabbi Yaakov Barad asked Rav, in the case of a man who engaged in intercourse with a betrothed minor girl, what is the halakha according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir? Does Rabbi Meir exclude him from punishment entirely, or does he exclude him merely from stoning, but he's executed by strangulation, like one who engages in intercourse with any other married woman? Rav said to him, it stands to reason that Rabbi Meir excludes him from stoning alone, but he's liable to be executed by strangulation. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Abba raised an objection to this answer. But isn't it written, if a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, and then they shall both die, the man who lies with the woman and the woman, indicating that this punishment does not apply unless they are both equally subject to punishment. If so, one who engages in intercourse with a betrothed minor girl is exempt, as she is not halakhically competent. The Rav remained silent and did not answer him. Okay. Shmuel says, what is the reason that Rav remained silent? Why not say to Rabbi Yaakov that his premise is repudiated by the verse. But if the man finds the betrothed young woman in the field, and the man takes hold of her and lies with her, then the man who lay with her alone shall die. This verse proves that the punishment of stoning applies to the man, even if the woman is exempt. The lacquer of a man who engages in intercourse with a betrothed minor should be the same.
Okay, let's go on the left. Rav remains silent. What does it mean that he remains silent? In Hebrew is shatik Rav, the same word for the word sheket. The taf and the sheket, the taf and the kuf, they are interchanged here. Shtika is the same as sheket. Yes, sheket, shtika. Yes. Yeah, continue.
There are several places in the Talmud where Rav remains silent in the face of an objection against his opinion, neither responding to the objection nor retracting his opinion. Other sages often find a proof for Rav's opinion after he remains silent. There's no uniform explanation for Rav's silence. In some cases, the commentaries say that Rav was silent because he considered the objection insignificant and therefore did not take the trouble to respond to it. In other cases, they say that Rav was silent because the opinion was based on a clear tradition, even though he did not have an answer on hand that did not affect the truth of his statement. In
this particular case, what they are saying is, what if someone has sex with a minor woman who is married? Okay, she's not killed by stoning, but he's not killed by stoning, but the person will be killed anyway. So Rav remains silent. The answer is yes, that he's being killed anyway by strangulation. He's having sex with a married woman. Only by stoning he's not being killed. So why did he remain silent? You know, it's a good question. We don't know. Probably he knew the answer, but he didn't find the source, or maybe he didn't care to answer. Now, it's interesting, Steve, and everybody, that they don't give an answer. He didn't really know the answer. And the reason they don't do it, I believe, is because Rav is the most important rabbi of the Talmud. So they assume that he will know the answer to that question. For some reason, he remains silent. But Rav is the founding father of the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, that's, I'm just mentioning to you so you will know. He's referred as Mar many times, the master, and his actual name was Abba Aricha. Abba, like father, Abba Aricha. And, you know, he was in Sura in the year 220, and he was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi.
Rabbi?
Yes.
It sounds almost as if the man is raping this young woman, the betrothed woman.
Yes. So we have again, I'm not going to go through everything, Tina, because rape in Judaism doesn't have the same, not Judaism it does, but in the Torah doesn't have the same connotation that we have today. So we did many things about rape, and we talk about intercourse with a young woman before. The issue here is that this young woman who is a minor is already married. So the problem here is not just what we will consider the most terrible thing about rape, but what the Gemara is addressing here as adultery.
Right.
Like in our mindset, in our society, that the single woman, 11 years old, will be raped, or someone will have sex with her, is worse than a married woman age 23 having sex with a man. Yes, but in the Talmud it's not. That's why they are talking about this case. Okay.
Okay.
Again, I am not, thank God, with the law. The law is that, I mean, the law that we go by is different. But in the Torah, non-consensual sex is punished by a fine. by a fine, while adultery is punished by death penalty. Okay, by a fine, by lashes, but not by death penalty. Okay, let's continue a little more, Steve.
The Gemara answers that this matter is subject to dispute between the Tananim, as is taught in the Baraita. The verse states, "Then they shall both die," indicating that this halakha does not apply unless they are both equally subject to punishment. If one of them cannot be punished, that is because he or she is a minor, the other is not executed either. This is the statement of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonatan says that the phrase from the verse, "Then the man who lay with her alone shall die," indicates that in some cases, only one of them is liable to receive the death penalty.
Look at the top of Al-Alakha, so we are going to be happy with the answer.
I don't think
The
we'll
man
ever be
who
happy
lies
with
with
the
her
answer.
alone.
The man who lay with her alone. In all cases of forbidden sexual intercourse, if one participant is an adult and the other a minor who is old enough for his or her intercourse to have the halakhic status of intercourse, the minor is exempt and the adult is liable.
So thank God they punished the adult. Okay, the Gemara asks, okay?
The Gemara asks, what does the other Tana, Rabbi Yochanan, hold that his punishment applies even if only one party is subject to punishment, derived from the verse? Then they shall both die. Rav says that the verse is stated to exclude an act of sharpening, that is, engaging in sexual contact with a woman without penetration. Since the man and woman do not equally receive pleasure from such an act, is not considered sexual intercourse, and they are exempt. And other Tana, Rabbi Yoshia, holds that an act of sharpening is nothing. There is clearly no liability for such an act, and it's unnecessary to derive this halakha from the verse.
So you see the act of sharpening in the Alakha or in the notes basically is playing with the penis on the body of the woman without penetration. Okay, that is what sharpening is. So let's continue. 2 more paragraphs, Steve.
The Gemara asks, what does the other Tana, Rabbi Yoshia, who holds that they must be equally subject to punishment, derive from the verse? Then the man who lay with her alone shall die. The Gemara answers, he derives another halakha as it is taught in a Baraita. If 10 men engaged in intercourse with a betrothed young woman, and she is still a virgin as they engaged in anal intercourse with her, they are all liable to be executed by stoning. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, the first of them is executed by stoning, and all the rest of them executed by strangulation. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi derives from the phrase in the verse, then the man who lay with her alone shall die, that although the woman is still a virgin, only one man can be executed by stoning for engaging in intercourse with her. The others are executed by strangulation in accordance with laka of one who engages in intercourse with a married woman or a betrothed non-virgin.
Let's do the two bottom alachot and the beautiful note that is there, Steve. Act of sharpening.
A man who engages in sexual contact with his penis and a woman whose body without penetration is exempt from the death penalty, but he receives lashes for engaging in active intimacy with a woman who is forbidden to him. If 10 men engage in intercourse with a betrothed young woman, in case where a betrothed young woman who is a virgin engaged in intercourse with several men, if they engage in vaginal intercourse, the first man is executed by stoning and the others by strangulation. If they engage in anal intercourse so that she remained a virgin according to halacha, they are all executed by stoning in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, as that is the majority opinion. Okay.
Let's do the note at the bottom of the page.
Act of sharpening. There are several versions of the text in the Gemara and explanations that have been suggested for the different versions with regard to the reading and act of hidulim. Some explain that it refers to sexual contact between a man's penis and a woman's body without penetration. Others read an act of herod, which refers to a man engaging in intercourse with a dead woman.
Right.
Another version is an act of harorim, which refers to a sexual contact between the penis and the buttocks that is not anal intercourse.
Okay, so you can, this would be something that we all wanted to learn in high school, but we didn't, okay, these things, but they are here. Okay, Now, I'm going to ask Judy if it's okay to read a little more for us. And we are almost done with this Mishnah, but hopefully we'll be able to move on and do another one. Okay, let's continue. The sages. You need to unmute. You are muted. You are unmuted, but we cannot hear you, Judy. And I don't know why. No, Judy, you hear, if you hear me, Judy, we cannot hear you. Okay.
No?
Now we can hear you.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
speak loud, okay? Yes.
Okay. The sages taught, the verse states, and the daughter of any priest, if she profanes the hell herself by playing the harlot, she profanes her father. She shall be burned with fire. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi says the word tehel means first tehillah, and likewise it says, then the man who lay with her alone shall die.
So this is a continuation. Rabbi Hanassi said only that the first person is liable, and the word tehel could mean two things. In the context of the Torah, tehel means profane. The word hol amoed, hol, as opposed to kodesh. Kodesh is holy, hol is non-holy. So this woman who committed adultery, not only she did the transgression, but she also profaned her family, her father, who is a Kohen, who is a holy, so to speak. Not that all the Kohanim, has a special status. She profaned her father. So that's the word hol. But the word hol also, tahel, is another word for the Hebrew leathil. She began. She was the first one. Leathil is also to begin. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is playing with the word hol tehel. Tehel means profane, but also could be begins. Okay? The Gemara asks. Let's continue.
What is Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi saying? Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, who says that only the betrothed daughter of a priest is singled out for execution by burning, but not one who is married. A married daughter of a priest who commits adultery is executed in the same manner as other women who commit adultery. And this is what Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is saying. If a woman's first act of sexual intercourse occurs when she commits adultery, as she is still betrothed, she is executed by burning. In another case, if she is already married, and this is not the first time she engages in sexual intercourse, she is executed by strangulation.
The Torah says the daughter of a priest, but we discussed this before and remember exactly the conclusion. But the daughter of a priest could be a betrothed daughter of a priest, could be a minor, or could be a married woman. So if she's a minor, she's not liable. But if she's a nara, I mean, she's liable in any of the two cases, but does she need to be married? If she's married, does it change or not, or if it's betrothed? So that is the question here. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi says that only if she is betrothed, because he interprets the word tehel, the beginning, not profane, but the beginning of her intercourse, which is the first time that she had sex. The Gemara asks, okay?
What is the meaning of the end of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's statement? And likewise, it says.
What does it mean, likewise? Yes.
Then the man who lay with her alone shall die. What is the relevance of that verse to this issue? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi means to say that the halacha here, in the case of the betrothed young woman who is the daughter of a priest, is like there. Just as there, with regard to a betrothed young woman who is not the daughter of a priest, the verse speaks of her first intercourse. Here too, the verse speaks of her first intercourse.
Go page 114.
Rav Bahavai bar Abaye said to Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, my master does not explain the statement of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi like that. The Gemara comments, and who is this master, Rav Yosef? Rather,
now he's going to explain. Okay, different.
Rather, he explains the statement of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi as follows. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says, in the case of a daughter of a priest who married one of the men unfit for her, mamzer, and committed adultery while married to him, her death sentence is administered by strangulation and not by burning.
Because remember, the other explanation interpret the word tehel, hol, as the beginning. So they interpreted the first act. Here, Rav Yosef interprets the one who is already profaned by marrying someone who is not fit to her. Okay, let's continue.
And this is what Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is saying. If she first profanes herself, disqualifies herself from the priesthood by committing adultery, she is executed by burning. But in another case where she has already disqualified from the priesthood by marrying a man unfit for her, she is executed by strangulation. And what is the meaning of the end of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's statement? And likewise, it says, then the man who lied with her alone shall die. It is merely mnemonic. The verse is not relevant to this halakha, and it's cited merely as a sign indicating that just as the halakha of a betrothed young woman pertains to her first act of sexual intercourse, so too the halakha of the daughter of a priest who committed adultery pertains to a case where it is her first disqualification from the priesthood.
Let me ask you, Rabbi.
Yes.
He's saying the woman is disqualified from the priesthood, but the woman was never a priest.
Okay, so now Judy is going to read us the first top of the top left, and is going to explain what does it mean.
Profanes herself?
Yes.
A woman who marries a man who is unfit for her due to flawed lineage is disqualified from marrying a priest after her husband's death. Furthermore, if she is the daughter of a priest, she is disqualified from partaking of truma, even if she gets divorced on her husband or her husband dies before she has children.
Okay, so that's what it means. So that doesn't mean that she's not going to serve in the temple, but the daughter of a priest had some prerogatives, and these prerogatives, if she profanes herself by marrying someone who is non-fit for her, that's how it's being affected.
Is a Kohen allowed to marry a widow?
Yes. Yes. Everybody with the exception of the high priest.
Okay.
Okay. I also want to talk a little briefly again about the Kohen profaning himself. So if you have a Kohen who, let's say, marry someone that he's not supposed to marry, then the children may have the last name Cohen, but the children are not a Cohen. Okay, so let's say, for example, a Cohen marries a non-Jewish woman, and the Jewish woman then converted, and the children converted. Yes. So then they are called Cohen. That doesn't matter. You can call them in the shul. May not make a big difference there, but they are not Kohanim. They lost the status. Okay, so this is called a halal. A halal is a Kohen who loses the way from the word hol. Halal from the word hol, profane. It's not profane in the sense of profanity or is lost his or her holy status.
So they can't duchen?
What?
They can't duchen?
They should not duchen. No, they should not duchen. They should not duchen. They should not certainly not hold truma, and they should not be called to the first aliyah either. But remember that all the things about the Aliyah, more important, I mean, Duchen is more important than getting an Aliyah. So Duchen is more Duchen is a mitzvah from the Torah. Getting an Aliyah getting the first Aliyah is
Like an honor.
A convention. No, it was done. You know how it started, that the Kohen gets the first Aliyah and the Levi gets the second Aliyah? Anybody knows?
No.
You remember, Cheryl?
It was to prevent fighting over who got the first and the second, and it just was a way to give order.
Yes, but and why they were fighting? I mean, besides the fact that they are Jewish, because the first Aliyah used to go to the greatest Talmid Chacham, to the greatest, the most knowledgeable person, and guess what happened?
Everybody wanted to be thought the
Yes,
most.
so if you gave it to Rabbi Shmuel, and then Rabbi, Yoshiyahu was looking and says, look who gets the first Aliyah. So people started fighting and arguing. So the rabbis decided, no more first Aliyah to the Talmid Chacham. We are going to do a convention, not a convention. How do you say? In Spanish, I'm thinking about like a standard technical decision.
Procedure.
The first Aliyah always to the Kohen, even he's an ignoramus. The second Aliyah always to the Levi, even if he's an ignoramus. And
So
then
what-
Israel, the rest. So if this is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's not going to get the first Aliyah, even if everybody agrees that he's the top of the community, because he's Israel. So they did that mipnei darkei shalom, to preserve the peace. So
Is this
if this was the original reason, you don't want to create a war, so when someone says, Rabbi, I am a Kohen, we do not say, bring me a certificate. The person says, usually you give them the Kohen. That's why when you have a bar mitzvah, you ask a person, are you a Kohen or a Levi? The person says, I am a Levi, so you give them the second Aliyah.
So how do you choose if there are more than one Kohen?
Of course, whoever gives more money. No, just kidding, Tina.
No, I want to tell you something, Rabbi.
No, you do it, the Gabbai, you should do it first. That's the person have a yortzeit. That the person, did the person get an Aliyah last week? So, you manage it.
My sister-in-law was telling me the last Pesach in Florida, she had to in advance. She wanted to buy the Aliyah for her husband, who was a Kohen. It went for $1,000.
Oh,
There was a bidding war for the first.
she should come here. It's a little less expensive. Okay?
But the Sephardic bid for all honors, carrying the Torah, the Aliyahs, they bid for everything.
Yeah.
Yes, at the beginning it used to bother me, but now I realize that it's a way to sustain the shul, and they do different things that we do. They don't usually do the same way we do. So I ask, for example, what happened if someone is a non-affluent person but did a lot of contributions. And what happened is that usually someone buys the Aliyah in honor of that person in the Sephardic world. I'm just explaining to you that yes, people who have money get Aliyot, but that doesn't mean that someone who doesn't have money and deserve it won't get an Aliyah. Okay.
Rabbi, back to what we were just talking about with the Kohen, can that person then go to the cemetery?
Sure.
Yeah.
I almost positive. It's a good question. So okay, so there is excellent question, Edna. So let me explain the difference. One thing is the Kohen, and the other is the children of a Kohen. So a Kohen never loses his status. So let's say that a Kohen marries a mamzeret, okay, or a woman who is a product of an adulterous relationship, okay, or a non-Jewish woman. Okay, a Kohen marries a non-Jewish woman. A Kohen is always a Kohen. That Kohen cannot go to the cemetery. The children of that Kohen are not Kohanim any longer, and all the restrictions don't apply to them. But the Kohen the Kohen, even the Kohen can transgress can marry a non-Jewish person. The Kohen is considered a Kohen.
So if
In
that-
the frum world, it's interesting that you're asking. In many congregations, they do not let him duchen if he marries a Gentile, for example. Chabad, interestingly enough, they do let him duchen.
Oh, really?
So this is a decision of the rabbi. The Chabad will say, he's already did the transgression. I'm not going to keep punishing him and preventing him from doing a mitzvah.
But does she have to convert?
No. I'm just saying that let's say a person married a non-Jewish woman. Okay, we say Goya, a non-Jewish woman. So it's a the children are not Jewish, but the father is a Kohen. He cannot lose his being a Kohen for that. So he is a Kohen, and he's still under all the prohibitions of the Kohen, going to the cemetery or the obligations to duchen. But in some congregations, because they want to pressure the people and they want to set an example, they will not give him any aliyah, not the Kohen or any other aliyot, like in some Ashkenazi congregations or in some Sephardi congregations. But Chabad is not like that. It's interesting enough. Chabad will give aliyot to people who are intermarried because they want to bring the person closer. Yes. So that will be my in my particular case, it will be my approach as well. And yes.
in that situation, if the woman converts before marriage, her children would then be Kohanim, correct?
So that's a big issue, Steve, because according to the strict halacha, a Kohen cannot marry the convert.
Not just the high priest.
Yes. And
What
the
Kohen-
reason I'm going to say that, but I was afraid that you were going to ask, so I was not going to say that. A Kohen cannot marry a divorcee, a halala, a woman who is in a product of a disqualified marriage, and also cannot marry what we call a zonah. A zonah in modern Hebrew is a harlot, but a zonah for the technical definition is someone who engaged in intercourse with a forbidden relationship, and in this case, for example, someone who is forbidden, and in this case could be like a Gentile. So the assumption is that any convert woman, this is the assumption, Steve, had sexual intercourse before the conversion, which in many cases is true. But in other cases, I think if she is 3 years old or older, that is the halacha. Okay, but this is again, I did perform marriages between Kohanim and converts, me manes Kogan. Like if someone comes and they say, Rabbi, I mean, usually people don't. I usually have they don't ask, don't tell. Like approach, okay? But technically, when Mashiach will come, he will decide what's the cases of these people, okay? But an Orthodox rabbi would not marry them. Give me just one second. I am in a meeting. I'm in a class. Everything is okay? Love you. I'm sorry. When someone from the family calls, they're supposed to know that I'm in a class, but he didn't know it. Okay, so that is the answer to your question about converts. So if someone is a daughter of a convert and a Kohen, they go by the fact that they don't know, and they say, we are Kohanim, they will get the first aliyah. Okay, Steve, how was my answer for that?
What you don't know won't hurt you.
What?
What you don't know won't hurt you.
Sometimes, yes. Yes, sometimes. I think also rabbis needs to do due diligence, but the question is about what, Like when someone comes for me and they want to want me to do the ceremony, I mean to marry them, I want to make sure that both are Jewish.
Well,
So
the Torah is supposed to be a living document, which evolves according to the interpretation of the times.
I mean, in some yes, but what does it mean? Is what you just said? What it means is different for you, for a Reformed rabbi, for me, for an Orthodox rabbi. Everybody will agree with what you said, but will interpret them differently. Okay, I have an ambitious plan for all of you. So let me ask Cheryl to read. And we are going now to talk on a different case altogether. The only thing that they have in common is that they are executed by stoning. And the case is a mesit. A mesit is an inciter. Is a person who incites someone else to worship idols. There is also the case of a prophet who incites someone else to worship idols, and there is a case of a person who incites an entire city to worship idols. These three cases are together in the book of Deuteronomy. Here we are talking first about the mesit. Mesit is a regular human being who invites other people to worship idols and have unique characteristics. So let's begin on the bottom of page 114. We have 25 minutes to do a Mishnah and a Gemara. So let's go.
With regard to the case of an inciter listed among those liable to be executed by stoning, this is an ordinary person, not a prophet, and it is referring to one who incites an ordinary person and not a multitude of people. What does the inciter do? He says, there is an idol in such and such a place which eats like this, drinks like this, does good for its worshipers like this, and harms those who do not worship it like this. The Mishnah states a principle with regard to the halakha of an inciter. With regard to all of those mentioned in the Torah who are liable to receive the death penalty, if there are no witnesses to their transgressions, the court does not hide witnesses in order to ensnare and punish them, except for this case of an inciter.
In general, we don't have witnesses. It's what it is. We do not trap them. We do not put like hidden cameras or hidden witnesses. But in this case of the inciter, we are going to put witnesses. The Mishnah is going to explain.
The Mishnah elaborates, if the inciter said his words of incitement to two men, they are his witnesses, and he does not need to be warned before the transgression. They bring him to court and stone him. If he said his words of incitement to one man alone, that man's testimony would not be sufficient to have the inciter executed. Therefore, he says to the inciter, I have friends who are interested in this. Tell them too. This way there will be more witnesses. The Mishnah continues, if the inciter is cunning and he knows that he cannot speak in front of two men, the court hides witnesses for him behind the fence so that he will not see them. And the man whom the inciter had previously tried to incite says to him, say what you said to me when we were in seclusion. And the other person, the inciter, says to him again that he should worship the idol. And he says to the inciter, how can we forsake our God in heaven and go and worship wood and stones? If the inciter retracts his suggestion, that is good. But if he says, this idol worship is our duty, this is what suits us, then those standing behind the fence bring him to court and have him stoned. The halakha of an inciter includes one who says, I shall worship idols, or one of the following statements, I shall go and worship idols, or let us go and worship idols, or I shall sacrifice an idolatrous offering, or I shall go and sacrifice an idolatrous offering, or let us go and sacrifice an idolatrous offering, or I shall burn incense as an idolatrous offering, or I shall go and burn incense, or let us go and burn incense, or I shall pour an idolatrous libation, or I shall go and pour a libation, or let us go and pour a libation, or I shall bow to an idol, or I shall go and bow, or let us go and bow.
Okay, so all these cases they are under the same category and they are punished by stoning. The person, they need to tell him, how can we forsake Hashem? If you say, how can we forsake Hashem? You know, he took it, and the person says, you know what, you are right. I'm sorry, I was stupid. Then it's okay. He's not being punished, but he says, no, I am still right. So then you punish him. Okay. Yes, David and Edna. 1 second. Edna.
I think Edna was first.
Oh,
What?
oh, thank you, David, gentlemen. My question was, I thought witnesses, how can they be hidden? Isn't that entrapment?
Yes, and what he's saying, Edna, this is the only case. This is the only case. It's the exception to the rule because of the severity of this sin. They cannot. The witness needs to warn him in person, with the exception of this case, because the severity of the sin. This is considered yes, the exception.
Thank you.
Okay? Yes, David.
So you said something, I was going to ask you, why is a warning not necessary?
Because of the severity of the sin also.
Severity of, so in other words, it's assumed that the transgressor should already know this stuff?
No, it's not about that. Usually transgression should be know everything, but needs to be warned. In all the other cases, with the exception, even for idol worship. This is not someone who is just worshiping idols, it's someone who is inciting everybody to worship idols. So because of that, these two things are, look at the bottom of page 114, Cheryl, if you can read the three halachot there.
If one incites a member of the Jewish people to worship idols, whether the inciter is an ordinary person or a prophet, and whether the incited party is a man or a woman or several Jewish individuals, he is liable to be executed by stoning, even if the incited party did not worship idols. Hiding witnesses for the inciter. One who incites others to worship idols does not need to be forewarned, and he is sentenced based on the testimony of 2 witnesses. If he incited one person, the incited party brings others to act as witnesses so they can subsequently testify against him. If the inciter is unwilling to speak in front of them, the court acts cunningly, hiding witnesses in a place where the inciter will not see them, and if he incites others again, they are his witnesses, and they bring him to court and have him executed by stoning. Said to 2, they are his witnesses. If he incited 2 people, they are his witnesses, and they bring him to court.
Okay, so these are the exceptions to the other rules, and it's only in this case called the mesit. Okay, let's go with the Gemara, and the Gemara is going to analyze it a little more. We are going to get to a very interesting story very soon, or interesting part of the Talmud.
The Mishnah teaches, with regard to the case of an inciter, this is an ordinary person. The Gemara infers, the reason he is executed by stoning is that he is an ordinary person, but if he is a prophet, he is executed by strangulation, not by stoning. The Mishnah states further, and it is referring to one who incites an ordinary person. The Gemara infers, the reason he is executed by stoning is that he incited an individual, but if he subverted a multitude of people, he is executed by strangulation.
So it seems here that will make it less severe. So the Gemara is going to have a problem with that. Let's continue. Consequently,
whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? It is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, as it is taught in a Baraita. A prophet who subverted others to participate in idol worship is executed by stoning. Rabbi Shimon says he is executed by strangulation. Likewise, the subverters of an idolatrous city are executed by stoning. Rabbi Shimon says by strangulation.
And I can tell you already, you don't have to read it on the right, that the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon, it's like the halacha of the rabbis, even though this Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Okay? The Gemara challenges.
Say the last clause of the Mishnah, that is, say the following Mishnah. With regard to the case of the subverter listed among those liable to be executed by stoning, this is one who says, let us go and worship idols. And Rabbi Yehuda says that Rab says, in this Mishnah, the sages taught the case of the subverters of an idolatrous city. Here we arrive at the opinion of the rabbis who hold that those who incite a multitude of people are also executed by stoning. Is it possible that the first clause of the Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Shimon and the last clause expresses that of the rabbis?
Sometimes a Mishnah could express 2 different opinions, but the rabbis don't like that. So they like that the Mishnah will be homogeneous, that will have that will reflect the opinion of one person. So now sometimes they cannot find, but in this case, they're going to find a good answer. Let's see, Ravina says,
The entire Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and the Tana teaches the Mishnah employing the style of not only this, but also that. In other words, the Mishnah should be explained as follows. Not only is one who incites an individual executed by stoning, but even one who subverts an entire city is executed by stoning.
you should note it doesn't come to limit, but to add. Okay, let's continue.
Rav Papa says, when the Mishnah teaches with regard to one who incites that this is referring to an ordinary person, it is not indicating that a prophet is not included in this halakha. Rather, it is referring to the hiding of witnesses behind a fence in order to ensnare the inciter, as his life is treated with contempt and derision, as though he were an ordinary person, that is, a simpleton. As it is taught in a Baraita, and with regard to all the rest of those liable to receive the death penalty by Torah law, the court does not hide witnesses in order to ensnare them and punish them, except for this case of an inciter.
Okay, this is again the source here of what you're asking me, except for this case of the insider. And now we are going to come to a very interesting part of the Talmud that was censored. So you get now the uncensored. This was censored for thousands of years, and now you get to it to its full version thanks to this edition of the Talmud. Okay?
How does the court do this to him? The agents of the court light a candle for him in an inner room, and they place witnesses for him in an outer room in the dark, so that they can see him and hear his voice, but he cannot see them. And the other person, whom the inciter had previously tried to incite, says to him, "Say what you said to me when we were in seclusion." And he says to him again that he should worship the idol. And the other person says to him, "How can we forsake our God in heaven and worship idols?" If the inciter retracts his suggestion, that is good. But if he says, "This idol worship is our duty, and this is what suits us," the witnesses who are listening from outside bring him to court, and they have him stoned. And the court did the same to an inciter named Ben Satada from the city of Lod, and they hanged him on Passover Eve. The Gemara asks, why did they call him Ben Satada when he was the son of Pandera? Rav Chisda says, perhaps his mother's husband, who acted as his father, was named Satada, but his mother's paramour, who fathered this mamzer, was named Pandera. The Gemara challenges, but his mother's husband was Papos ben Yehuda, not Satada. Rather, perhaps his mother was named Satada, and he was named Ben Satada after her. The Gemara challenges, but his mother was Miriam, who braided women's hair. The Gemara explains, that is not a contradiction. Satada was merely a nickname, as they say in Pumbedita, this one strayed, Satat Da, from her husband.
And anybody knows why this was censored? Okay, look the background to the top left, Cheryl.
Ben Satada. Both the European Christian censors who compelled the omission of certain Talmudic passages and folk tradition identified this person with Jesus based on the several similarities. Despite this, Tosafot write that this is impossible for reasons of chronology. More recent research identifies Ben Satada as a sorcerer from Egypt. This individual is also mentioned by Josephus.
Okay. Anybody see some things in this story that could make us think that is the reference to Jesus?
Well, Mary is sometimes called Miriam.
Yes, and in Hebrew, who braided woman's hair. Okay, I like just to look for you to the Hebrew, the third line, the last one. Imo Miriam, you see Miriam, the next word is Megadla Neshia Habai. Megadla is the one who braided the hairs, but the word Megadla also is related to Magdalene, to Migdal. Again, in this case, Jesus' mother was not Miriam Magdalene, but the word is there also. This idea that Jesus was a mamzer means that Miriam was not a virgin mother, but basically committed adultery with someone else. I am just curious, and I'm going to check it right now, if this passage is taken from the regular edition of the Talmud. So just bear with me. This is my traditional Talmud that I have it to impress my visitors. So which page are we? 67A, yes, 67A. 67A. I'm just curious to see if it's here. 67A. Excellent. Yes, it's not here. It's not here in this edition. The last two paragraphs that Cheryl read are not in the traditional edition of the Talmud. And I want to say that Steinsaltz, both in this edition and in the Hebrew edition, he incorporated all the censored parts of the Talmud that dealt with Jesus, incorporated in his edition. And I will explain briefly why. Because Steinsaltz moved to Israel and he was a big believer. He was a follower of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, by the way, that's another story. But in addition, he believed that the state of Israel was an independent state that was strong and that Jews don't have to fear anything. And the time of being in the galut, in the diaspora, in exile, and fearing the goyim is over. And therefore, let's put everything that they asked us to, or they did not allow us to include. And many people, especially those who did the other Talmud, they says we are still here and it's not nice to put this paragraph, so they kept them out. Okay, so this is a little about the politics of censorship. There are many books. I will show you a couple. Okay. You know, rabbis have some hobbies. So you know some of my hobbies. One is cigars and golf, but I also have some hobbies of things that I like to read when I have free time, and one of them are the subject of the Jewish Jesus. This is something that I am interested in. It's not something that affects my rabbinate, but I am just curious about it and how the subject of Jewish Jesus was addressed. So, so this is mostly by Jewish scholars. So this is Amy Jill Levine from Vanderbilt University. Okay, it's not one of my favorites. This is a fantastic book by Flusser, professor of Hebrew University. This is Geza Vermes, one of the most important scholars from the Dead Sea Scrolls and an Hungarian Jew. This is one of the classics, Christianity in Talmud and Midrash. So he brings all the sources that are about Jesus in the Talmud. Another one, Jesus in the Talmud. All the sources that we are discussing are here, including that one in Sanhedrin. Another one by Geza Vermes, Jesus the Jew. And last but not least, which one is this? The Jewish Jesus by Peter Schaefer from Princeton. Okay, so these are, when I have time, I start reading this. This subject for me is fascinating because the Jews dealt with Jesus since the beginning of Jesus. It's not only the Christian dealt with Jesus. So how did the Jews look at the historical Jesus? So this is one of the main sources. That's how I know. Okay, how are we doing? So many times I keep you longer. I'm going to finish a little earlier today, and we are not going to have class next Wednesday. We are taking a week vacation for Hol HaMoed Pesach, so I can go and do fun things with the family or not, we'll see. And we will resume in 2 weeks, and I wish all of you happy Pesach and only blessings. Which day is today?
March 24th.
24th.
We are almost done with the chapter. I don't know if we are going to do it in 1 week, but if not, maximum 2. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? Any?
Yeah, having the Talmud with all of these inclusions that were censored previously, it makes me think of an ambition to acquire all Dr. Seuss's books, which are now being banned. And I just acquired 2 original copies of Gone with the Wind, because I think they're going to be collector's items eventually, because that's going to be censored too. And I bought an original version of Monopoly, because I understand that is also now being changed to reflect woke values. And since I was never woke previously, I plan to continue sleeping and retaining all of these vestiges of my youth.
What was wrong with Monopoly? What was so?
Because Monopoly has things in it like you won a beauty contest in Community Chest and you get $75. So now instead you get a welfare check or something, something more politically correct. So it just, it's just ridiculous. This is a child's game. And, I guess I don't want any of my grandchildren going into beauty contests, but I don't think that playing Monopoly is going to create that.
You better get a movie edition of Breakfast at Tiffany's also. That's
Oh, it was just on the other night. I saw it.
I know, but they're gonna get rid of that also.
I know.
I want to say, Cheryl, that a part of me hopes that the pendulum will go back to a more sensitive place, but another part of me also is concerned about censorship and pressure on people where people will be, and it's happening when people are denied jobs and jobs opportunities and college places, and because of their opinion. And we have cases of young members, people in the shul. I know a particular case who is Avi's age that was interviewed for a particular university. It's a very like an Ivy League, and gets to a particular, and part of the question has to do about Israel, and this woman who is a member of the young member of the shul has a flag of Israel in the place that she wanted to do the interview, and she took the flag of Israel down because she didn't want to affect her chances of getting into the university. So I'm just sharing this. This is a fact that I happen to know.
It's very
sad story.
But true. Okay, so I'm just saying, it is sad, and the same happened with what people are going to say, with how people, and it happens in places, in job places, in where people really having an opinion, and okay, not too much to add, but hope I
Thank
just
you,
hope
Rabbi.
that.
Happy season Pesach, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Sister Pesach to everybody. Stay fun. Enjoy.
Be well, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Very interesting.
Bye bye. Thank you. Be well.